Good afternoon for most of you, I imagine, and good morning to anyone who is on this side of the Atlantic with me. I was working on a few scripts for some coming videos, and I figured maybe it'd just be faster to jump on a live, especially since we have like almost all of our songs now. And especially after the events of yesterday, I definitely wanted to get in touch with a few people and see how we're feeling about the season so far. I have a lot of things to say, I must say. But first and foremost, please say hello if you're in the comments. I know obviously I've just started, so it might take a bit of time for people to arrive. And I'm kind of turned a little bit more than I want to, but I'm speaking to my phone, and then I've got the controls over here on my PC. But nonetheless, hello to Tom Yam. Nice to have you here for being new to the channel. Thank you very much. I have to say, and this is probably the thing that I should start off with, is that so many of you are so lovely, and you give me so much positive feedback, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's especially meaningful when you set out to do something and the feedback that you get is more or less exactly what you were hoping for. Because as you know, like I don't do reaction videos. I don't do I don't know, like the kind of typical things that a lot of Eurovision YouTubers tend to go towards, because it's just not my style. Like obviously some people, they're really good at them. For me, I don't, it's not interesting content for me. And so I'm always kind of doing my best to try and find like where the stories are in individual selections, and what are people talking about, who can I reach out to in this region that could shed some light on one thing or another. And it takes a lot of work. This is not a full-time job of mine. I make very little money off of YouTube. So it's something that I do in my spare time, which I'm having less and less of as time goes. But I'm really grateful that it means something to all of you. And yeah, so thank you so much. You've all been incredible. And yeah, hello to Janik or Yannick. I'm not sure which way to pronounce it, but great to have you. Hello to Johnny. Hello to Zemniak Master. Hello to Joseph Mendy. Good afternoon. Let me know where you're tuning in from as well, because obviously we could be tuning in from anywhere. Not everybody expects a Canadian to be this thoroughly invested in Eurovision, but that's kind of how it goes. Hello to Melambrion. Hello to Adrian Sizia, Adrian from Poland. Thank you very much, Adrian. And Virginia Vision. Well, from Virginia. Cool. So I think probably the biggest focus will be Melfest, an outcome that if you would have said, like at any point before the last few weeks, or even like just the last week, that a returning winner to Melfest would come very close but lose out to what is effectively a novelty act in Swedish, nobody would have believed you. The fact that it's happened, first and foremost, I want to say I am thrilled for Sweden, not just because it's different from what we've seen them send in the last little while, but I really want to defend this as a song, because yes, it's a novelty song, but it is, in my opinion, a lot more musically developed than the average novelty song that we've come to expect from Eurovision. Obviously, there are some exceptions. There are plenty of novelty songs that I like myself. But in this case, like when I think about watching that performance, the performance of KAJ's performance with Para Para Bastu the first time after that semifinal, because obviously that was the same semifinal as Mons, I'm pretty sure. And that was the song that was in my head, leaving that heat, right? And like again, like it obviously has certain aspects of it that make it look like a lot of people will call this a joke entry, and I'm not so like picky on the language that people use. I think novelty song is definitely applicable to this, because it's they're talking about having a sauna. It's lighthearted and fun. I think that's a perfectly apt description of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's really catchy. It's fun. It's inviting as well. So I'm really thrilled that Sweden has done something like this, but I'm thrilled for Sweden. And when talking about the larger competition, that's where my opinion is a bit different because I'm sure if you hang around certain circles, whatever your platform of choice is, you have probably seen certain discussions about the quality of songs this year. And what's interesting is that that has also been happening in parallel to these interviews that heads of delegations are giving, where they're talking about wanting to bring juries back to the semifinals. And so what that suggests to me is that, sorry, if you hear my dog whimpering in the background, maybe you can see her over there. What that suggests to me is that it's not just us being like, hey, what the hell is going on with the quality this year? That sounds like, these are discussions that are being had at that level as well. And so how this relates to Kai and all that, because again, perfectly happy about that song going to Eurovision and representing Sweden. But it is in a mixture of many different types and qualities of novelty songs. And when you have that, it really impacts the overall impression of Eurovision as an event. And I've, just before hopping on this, I was trying to look into some of, the discussions after yesterday. And I came across some people chatting about how the Melfest participants were saying this about Melfest. They're saying that the fact that this song, this like comedy song, won Melfest means that the show is now completely different. And while in some ways I think that's a bit of an overreaction, I'm pretty sure that come next year we'll be back to Swedish pop, which I have no problem with. What matters to me is it good Swedish pop or is it, subpar? Because sometimes we get subpar Swedish pop. But in any case, with respect to Eurovision, I think that is a concern. And we know that the show is in jeopardy. It might not seem that way because we've had quite a bit of distance from the controversies and fallouts of last year. But, come May, we might find that not a lot has changed. And yes, there's been these attempts on the part of the EBU and the participating broadcasters to introduce these safeguards, and they might help, but we don't know what the challenges are going to, we don't fully know what the challenges are going to be come this year. And so the fact that the song quality is also starting to shift is suggesting that, it's certainly too soon to say whether or not this is a trend, but that might start to deter certain talent who are not seeking novelty in any regard. And my attitude has always been that there should be space for both. There has always been space for both, but when we look at the 2000s were definitely much more interested in novelty, and a lot of people attribute that to the focus being on the voting being strictly televote. I think that is definitely an element of it. There's probably other things too, but if you look back further than that, there were similar criticisms around Eurovision in the late 70s and early 80s. I remember reading about when Bucks Fizz won for the UK in 1981. There were a lot of complaints about the quality of that, which is funny because for British fans, they're like, "Oh, that's the best! Like, it's one of our winners. Of course, it's one of the best songs." But if you go further into the 80s, then you start to see that it's not so much about novelties, but it takes a dive. The musical depth is not really there. It's very over the top, a lot of over dramatic ballads, a lot of it's a completely different level of taste. And one that when my partner and I were going through all the Eurovisions and seeing them all for the first time, it just felt like a completely different show. So this has happened before, and it will be interesting to see how that goes forward. Again, I accept that some of this is I might be talking a little bit too soon about how this reflects the show going forward, but in any case, it's my perception that there is a difference in quality. And while I can be happy for certain countries, because there's also I'm thrilled with Australia's song, and I think that one is more justifiably, when you kind of take out the sexual innuendo, it is more justifiably like a radio friendly song with cool instrumentation. It's catchy as well. That one like stuck out in my head as soon as I heard it. But there's also the sexual innuendo. That's a big part of the appeal. And so I could be happy for those countries doing something like that, but then also be a bit concerned about some of the other choices. And we can definitely get into that. But I've been talking for a long time, and I want to see what some of you have been saying. Firstly, let's say hello to a few more people. Hello to Alberto. Hola. Also from Asia, so it's night here. Yeah, and here we just got on to daylight saving, so we've lost an hour in the night. And after this, I have to go to a family gathering, so I wanted to fit this in as best as I could. Hello to Martau from the Netherlands. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Goice afternoon to me. From Southeast Asia. Stayed up late for Melfest, was worth it. Yeah, I mean, and the overall temperature in the room, as I'm sure you can imagine, when it comes to Eurovision fans, is that they're happy because they've been asking for the longest time for Sweden to stop taking themselves so seriously and send something in Swedish. I think there's a little bit more to that, as I've kind of already touched upon, but nonetheless, yeah, anyway. Kai was awesome. Great song, great staging. They have the whole package. Phi Tan Tran sending love from Vietnam. Thank you very much. Glad that Sweden's finally sending something different. Quite a lot of us from Southeast Asia. Yes, and I've actually, just from hanging around in different parts of the internet, I've noticed that as well, that the fan base is certainly growing in certain regions of the world. Some of you might also know that it's looking, I don't want to put any certainty into this, but some people seem to have some confidence that Eurovision Latin America is going to start at the end of this year. I'm very much of the mindset of like, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens after Eurovision 2025 to see if that impacts people's perceptions. But nonetheless, I really want Juries back in the semis, but with smaller impact. Yeah, I mean, and that's been one of the things, as I mentioned, that the delegations have been talking about. The thing about having juries, like, and we see this in UMK, right, where if the jury's impact is not equal, then it's difficult to find a balance in which it really even matters that they're there, because in UMK 2024, the song that came last with the jury still won the show. And while you can, I mean, it is a bit of a different argument when we're talking about a local selection, because obviously it's the song that represents the people, and at the end of the day, it's not that big a deal. But I think that when it comes to having some element in the score, which is to evaluate execution first and foremost, because the audience, like, if it's fun and goofy, then the audience is mostly not going to care if the artist can't sing. Whereas for juries, mostly they will take that into consideration. And then also like taste, which is obviously subjective, but when I'm looking at like the overall selection this year and thinking about like how backwards, not like backwards in like when people talk about like social matters being backwards, but just sort of backwards progress from that kind of point of view. Yeah, I think that it's an underappreciated quality to have people who have industry sensibilities being like, this is going to be a good representation of our industry. A lot of people disagree with that, but I'm not of that mindset. Yannick saying, even if Kai is considered as a joke entry, there's a quality behind it. It's not just a fun song. And I mean, like, the thing is, you can make that argument about any song. Again, just because in case people are tuning in midway through, where I've already stated my support for Kai and excitement for Sweden sending something different. People will make that argument about every song that we've seen that's been a novelty song, and it's like, oh yeah, there's a little bit more to it, and it's like, that's great, but how much is that coming through? And in this case, like, I think it is coming through, because it's warm and inviting. It's not like, because there are certain other songs that are meant to be more provocative. In some cases, they're meant to kind of be insulting as well. And there's also a right and wrong way of going about that. I was a big supporter of Mama Schiff from Croatia 2 years ago, full on making fun of Vladimir Putin. What I also did is I also argued for the musical merits of that song, which not everybody appreciated. A lot of people were like, it's just noise. They can't sing. It's blah, blah, blah. But in any case, okay, so joke entry and comedy song. Comedy relates to jokes and humor. So I think that's a pretty thin line, but obviously, you use your own terminology, all the power to you. Anderz Wrethov is a genius. Genius. Wow. I need to slow down when I speak. First, oh, you touched my tra-la-la, and now iski kaski kolme sauna. Yes, if you didn't know, if you guys, some of you might know that song by Gunther from Malmö, by the way, where we had Eurovision last year. But Anderz Wrethov was behind you touch my tra-la-la. Do you think the credibility ESC gained after Måneskin, Duncan Lawrence, etc., will be gone after this year? Well, there are a lot of theories as to what could be. I mean, and again, it is a bit too soon to say whether or not the credibility is gone, but the temperature, as far as I'm concerned about how, what entries have been put forward, is that there is, again, novelty is being embraced a lot more. I mean, one thing that we have to consider is, were artists that would have otherwise signed up to participate in Eurovision, either through a national selection or an internal selection, were they turned off by the events of last year? And the thing is, as much as it's a theory, it's not really something that you can prove. The only thing that we know is that there were petitions that were signed, towards the broadcasters, towards the EBU, concerning Israel's participation. Joost Klein's disqualification was headline news. He had a big fan base, and so I think that it should be considered a possibility, even if it can't really be proven, because you can't really say like, oh, if that didn't happen, then we would have had artists X, Y, and Z. It's just more so a fact of, like, we have to accept that, Eurovision is still in trouble. And 2025, as like, if you saw the first video that I made this year, it is really going to be crucial to the show's future success. But as for your question, I don't know if it will be completely gone. I think that it is telling of different sensibilities that are appealing to a slightly different audience. Like, I think the core Eurovision audience will probably still stick with the show no matter what. As for, the kind of people that can kind of broaden it, they might start investing their time and efforts into other pursuits, maybe. Helix is so happy for Sweden. Hello to Matt from Malta. I think the best thing for the future, in my personal opinion, is like 75 televote, 25% jury. And so, yeah, this is the UMK model. Again, like, I'm of the opinion that if your jury has so little impact, then they might as well not be there, because, the televote more or less decides who goes. And I mean, I did a video like a year and a half ago, but yeah, it was after the 2023 final, where I used UMK 2020, which famously led to the changes going forward. It also had Erika Wickman, who has won UMK this year, and using the results of that, which was 50-50 jury televote, in which Axel won, and changed the calculation so that it matches the system that we have now, where it would be 75% televote, 25% jury, and applied those to those results. And Axel still wins with like a 3-point lead. And there was one or two people who had said that's actually kind of what they prefer, because then it means that in the event that the televote is not, like, no one has like a big lead, then the jury is the one that decides between, two songs that are, more or less preferred by the televote. And in that case, you might have one that is a little bit more technically sound, has a little bit more international appeal. And I think that is a good argument. And again, I think that for a national selection, that makes a lot more sense. When we're talking about Eurovision in general, I think that it's either got to be 50-50 or nothing. Or, well, it should be 50-50, or just keep doing this 100% televote thing and see how it goes. What else are you saying? Matt's saying the 50-50 split worked fine. The issue is credibility of the jurors and ensuring the system cannot be corrupted. So define credibility, because I have, it's another thing. It's so funny how a lot of these things are resurfacing like 2 years later. But yes, like when looking at the jobs of some of the jurors, the title that they were given was questionable as to like whether or not they're really the best choice to be, voting on a televised musical event. So because what you also have to accept is that for some people who have very concrete ideas about how the score is supposed to go, anything that's outside of their ideal ranking is unacceptable. And what we have to keep in mind is that with the jury, like, you don't get full insights into how the public feels about each individual song. The jury is obligated to rank every song from first to last, and it's not a reflection of how much they liked it. It's simply which one they thought had more merits is further to the top, and the one that they think had the least is at the bottom. And so, like, it's very easy to criticize someone's ranking, and you see this as well with, like, if you have a YouTube channel and you do like your my top 37 or whatever, there are always people in the comments being like, "Ugh, you put song X in this spot, you're the worst." Like, it's so easy to be like, "This is wrong because I say so," and I think that a lot of people get really carried away with that idea when it comes to the actual jury voting. But yeah, so like I think that there's definitely an argument to be made about what kind of professionals are on the jury, and we've also talked about like the size of the jury. Would it be better if there were like 8, 9, 10, maybe even 20 people on the jury? That would obviously be a bit more costly for the broadcasters, which is not the direction that everybody wants to go to with Eurovision in the current state that it's in. But there are a lot of arguments to be made about how effective the jury is. I think that there are a few nuances that people don't quite consider when it comes to that. Virginia Vision saying, I feel like the contest is on a positive trajectory musically. So I'm hesitant to advocate for sweeping changes that may affect that. Yeah, and I mean, like, look, some people really like the novelty songs, and I mean, I might be assuming that that's your reason for thinking that, but for some people, the 2000s is like the peak of Eurovision. I don't think that's how a lot of people who are in the industry right now would feel. But like, different strokes for different folks. My attitude, again, has always been that there should be space for everyone, and that the overall show should feel like an event that is welcoming to the Karyas, the Loreens, the Salvador Sobrals, the Cornelia Jacobses, the Mahmoods, the Constractas, the Daddy Freyers, all, like, a whole breadth of artists. And my concern is that if it becomes more about, like, I can go on stage, dress up in a Halloween costume and then just, I don't know, do some nonsense that is really only going to have a life on the Eurovision stage, then I think that is going to that's going to lead to a loss of interest of some of those artists, right? Do you think that Gaia can win? No, I have to say, I'm sorry. I must. I have to say that Justina's 1995 song is my favorite Polish entry ever. Love it to bits. I know that it's very hit or miss for people because it's quite avant-garde, and so I'm thrilled to have her back. I don't really see anything in it that says winner. In fact, so I have to admit, I've only seen the performance once, and I haven't listened to the song outside of that. But what I remember is that in the chorus, it's just one kind of sustained note, and she's kind of like just spinning around, isn't she? Right? Like, so I think that Poland is probably in a good position to be back in the final this year. But yeah, I don't think that's winning, I must say. Tutta. KAJ are looking into a top 5 with televote. It reminds me of Spirit in the Sky a little bit. Absolutely. In fact, like I could see them getting higher than that. I think what we have to consider is that at this moment there are a lot of entries competing for public votes, and you know the theory is always, if you're in a situation like that, does that mean that some songs will kind of pull in all of them, and then the rest will be, you know, paid very little by the televote, or is it going to spread everything out? Will they have sort of like a more equal appeal across the board, and then we'll have for the third year in a row a song that has jury appeal get a landslide because there's not a lot of jury competition, and then I'm sure that's going to fuel more complaints about the jury, as it always does, because it's always the jury's fault, right? But in any case, like when looking at all, I think it's 32 songs that we have right now. There are a lot of people competing for that public vote. I will say that from my personal opinion, I think that KAJ is amongst the most, it has the most appeal because it's not cynical like a certain Neighbours clearly novelty act. It's not depending on one very specific, like a certain island nations, not necessarily novelty song, but like yeah, and we can talk all about that if you want to ask me some questions about that song. But yeah, like I think that it's much like Karya, because Karya, I think a big part of Karya's appeal was that he was kind of this goofy class clown that just fully embraced who he was. Like, you know, he performed with a bolero, fully exposing his body, and he's a little chubby, but he's confident. He's confident in himself, and like he's talked about the scar that he has, because I don't know if it was appendicitis or a certain issue that he had where he needed to be operated on. But in any case, he's just like, this is me. I'm doing my silly dance. Also, my song's a banger, and it's not going to leave your head. And so I think that there's a lot of aspects of that without like the, you know, exposed bodies and all that. But yeah, it just like it makes you want to you know, hop in the sauna and just sing goofy Swedish songs. Taya is saying, I believe KAJ can win the televote altogether personally. Possible. Definitely. I assume that this is the ratio that you're suggesting, 66 televote, 33 jury. And yeah, it's like, you know, maybe that would be a nice enough balance. The thing that I do want to remind people of is that it will not stop the complaints, because in the event that a song that like after shifting the needle, if a song that wins the televote still loses because it had more jury support, people will still complain. So keep that in mind. There's no perfect system, and yeah, just keep that in mind. I remember reading Alexander's mentions. I think the participation of a certain country is why the UK had to bring in Scandi songwriters. Oh, so I actually haven't looked into the songwriters of their what the hell just happened. If anybody has them, maybe you could. I mean, I could Google them as well, but I'm busy. And please let me know what you think about that song, because that one's a curious one, I must say. I'm a big fan of tight harmonies, especially in like an Americana sound. There's this one song that I really like by Brandi Carlile called The Eye, and you should definitely watch it because it's a beautiful song. And the performance that they do, the official video is just like a live, it's a continuous take of her and her two backup singers just performing it live. It's really beautiful. But with that song, so I have to say, chorus, catchy as hell. Probably one of the catchiest choruses that we have. The rest of it, I was kind of like, this is, they're very clearly going for the, you know, I don't want to say it's queer baiting because I know nothing of them, and I think that sometimes that phrase is used unfairly. But they know their audience, and I don't know how effective that is for the song individually. But chorus is great, and if they can perform like that live, then I can at least appreciate it. What are your thoughts on fan media journalists serving as jurors? Yeah, I don't like that personally. I mean, the thing is, if up until last year, if I was approached to be on a jury for something, I would at least consider it. I do think that at the end of the day, it's probably like I'm probably not the right person. I like to analyze and give my best appraisal of the songs, the staging, especially like because I've worked in television before. I really like kind of diving into visual aspects. And there is a video. I kind of teased this earlier in the year, and I shouldn't have because I had to go right into national selection coverage. But there is a video which was requested, which is all about that, and it's going to be coming out soon-ish, and it's going to be quite long as well. So if you're a really big fan of me, then you'll have lots more of me to see. But in any case, yeah, I don't think it's a good choice. I've also seen that in the past, like they'll have members of OGAE on jurors as jurors for Eurovision, and I don't think that being a Eurovision fan qualifies you enough to be to have that level of influence on a song. I think that's because a lot of people have advocated for that, including at Eurovision as well, and I think that they feel quite a big sense of entitlement. I would much rather it be musicians primarily, and then if I were to introduce a rule without having to change the size of the juries, I would say that at least 3 of them must be professional musicians with like evidence of their career. It doesn't necessarily have to be musical releases, as long as if they're let's say like an instrumentalist that supports certain acts, totally fine with that. And then the other 2, I would say, should be television like directors or like involved in the execution of similar acts like that. And like I would say that the minimum should be 3 musicians, but you could have up to 5 musicians, because I think that should be really where the focus is. I'm okay with it being like an A&R from a record label, but I think that anything else should be in those other 2. The majority should be musicians. But in any case, yeah, I'm not a fan of like I'm not one of those people who like really criticizes weeby blogs, but anytime that I see William Lee Adams or what's the other guy's name? I've met this guy. Oh my god, I can't believe it. Devin, yeah. Okay, so yeah, anytime that I see like in a national selection where they go to them and they're introducing the points, I'm always kind of like, how much has their voting been impacted by the fan discussion? And some people are probably like they think that upholds the integrity of the contest. I do not, because I think that fans are a different breed. Fans are very thoroughly invested into the show year round, and that shapes their perception of so many things, including like music in general. And so and I don't want to pass judgment on either of them. It's something that I always think about whenever they appear in a national selection and they're giving out points for a jury. In any case, yeah, I think I made my point. Helix asking, what are your faves? Oh man, Albania. I have to say that I'm really happy that Albania has stayed a favorite for a lot of people throughout the year. I am going to be one of these people, but I liked them before they were cool. I had discovered them after having watched Festivali Këngës 60, which was the year that Ranella won, because they had written the song for Rezarta Smaya, Eyamya Nuse. which in my opinion was like way better than both Ranella and Aldan that year. Like they were great. They had really powerful songs. I was happy that Ranella won, but neither of them had the performance chops that Rosarta had. And Rosarta's song was so lively and so like you could see how it changed the orchestra. When the orchestra had to perform that song, they just were having so much fun. And I think that it was like, I think it was last on the night of the final, or maybe it's the semifinal. But in any case, so they wrote that song, and then me doing my research, I looked into it. I discovered some of their other music. And so when they were announced as artists for Festival Kungas this year, I was really excited. I tend to go into a lot of national selections being like, finding my favorite, being like, this is a really cool entry. It's probably not going to get picked, and then just kind of making peace with that. And then that didn't happen. And then they ended up winning over Alvana Gyata, which I was not expecting, and I'm very happy for that. And so anyway, Albania is one of my favorites. Really like Germany. Obviously, the live doesn't really sell the song as well as it could be, and I think I've heard certain people say that she was sick that day, which is like, you know, obviously it's not something that's going to make me pass judgment on how they're going to perform at Eurovision, but I think the song's really cool. I've heard that it's also doing really well in Germany. What else do I like? Belgium is very me. The music that I first fell in love with when I was like 9-10 years old was trance music. And Belgium is one of the countries where that sound really thrived. It was Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, and United Kingdom. And honestly, it's like those other three where trance really took off. That, you know, they had certain songs made it into the charts and all that. But it's really cool that for me, like it's a sound that I have a lot of nostalgia for. And Red Sebastian, man, like what a voice. He can really executes that song very well. I understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's very me. So I'm thrilled with that. And I'm trying to think of what else. Really like Latvia, really like Ukraine. Yeah. I'll move on to something else. We need juries like the one that voted for Chanel, regardless of Spanish fandom. Sure. I mean, it's also interesting. Like that to me is the perfect example of how much of an about face fandoms can make, where like in the moment it was all about how it should have been Dynjaja, and they got 70% of the televote, and that was clearly the right choice. And then come May, when it like people are talking about the possibility of Spain winning, and all of a sudden it's like Chanel's the best, somos Chanelazos, like. That a good reminder for everyone, whenever there's like a really heated moment, to just kind of like take a breath, go outside, touch grass, think about your life. Remember that Eurovision is not the most important thing in the world, and yeah, take a chill pill. Oh, okay. I'm glad that somebody mentioned this. Tutta l'Italia describes Italy 100 times better than espresso macchiato. Yeah, so. This whole trajectory is hilarious to me. The fact that it was the theme song of Sanremo, which is like, top tier music festival, the one that it's the OG, it inspired Eurovision, and it was just meant to be the theme song. It was meant to be something lighthearted and fun. And someone in the offices of SMR TV, I think is the name of the broadcaster, is like, that one, we want that one to represent us, right? And of course it goes on to win, because like it's fun, and like I think that one is another example of like, it is very clearly a novelty song, but it's also like catchy and inviting and not insulting my intelligence like some other ones. So yeah, like, wow, that's hilarious. I do need to read the actual lyrics of that song, because I know as much as any ordinary person of the Tutta l'Italia, Tutta l'Italia, Tutta l'Italia. Hey. Cobra saying, I love what the hell just happened. It's so fun. Okay, so I assume that this is about the UK. Songwriters are mostly Danish. Fans can't be satisfied. In Portugal, the biggest hit won in a tiebreak favoring the televote. Still complaints. Yeah, Like I have seen people complain even when it's like mutually agreed by the jury and televote that like I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was Germany last year because I'm pretty sure Isaac came first with both the jury and televote. And I might be remembering that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was what happened. And people were still complaining, being like, Germany's coming last again, and they didn't. So yeah, it just goes to show you that people will still find ways to complain. Thank you very much. Love your take on who should be in the jury. I never thought about the visual TV production standpoint. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if there's really anything else to add to that. I feel like we need professional juries to keep the serious songs afloat and maintain some seriousness in the contest. We still need conventional musicians and conventional songs. Yeah, and I mean, like, again, my attitude is that there should be space for everyone. I prefer when the overall atmosphere reflects that, kind of like we are serious musicians kind of thing. Or if it's going to be something that's like lighthearted and fun, that it would be something like Daddy Freyer, because like everyone agreed that that song, well, maybe I'm speaking too broadly, but in any case, like it was fun, but had great musicianship behind it. Like those melodies really stood out. Again, warm and inviting, not like mocking, not over the top. I mean, like over the top in sort of like what's the phrase? Like a deadpan way. I don't know if that makes sense. But in any case, like if it's gonna be that, then absolutely. Not some of what we have this time. So some of what we have this year is very much outside of the Daddy Freyer kind of thinking. Yeah, totally. Zierm all the way. Zierm. Schnitt, schnitt, schnitt. The piece around has made a great video analysis on the juries back in 2023. I did watch that one, and yeah, like I have what's her name? Rachel, I think it's her name. Yeah, I watched that as I was making the video that I did. That was one that I came across, and I think that she made a lot of really good points. The one thing that I didn't quite agree with her on is she had made like she made her own evaluation, and like obviously. I think that's great that she did. In a separate video, I did mine, but I think that she was kind of leaning into like she made like a calculation of like how she believes the points should have gone, and like it's not the worst thing in the world. She made a lot of really good points with that video, but I think that just the way that she went about that was a little bit more like, my calculations are the right ones, and this is how it should have been. The way that it actually went is not a reflection of quality, and I think that gets into the discussion about what qualities are truly objective and subjective. But in any case, it was a great video. Yes, this is the one. This is the one where they go, "Come in my boats, come to the sea." Come on, da 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 da. Yeah, those aren't the lyrics, but it's got that epic trombone line. But yeah, come in my boat, come on, let's cross the sea in 50 degrees. Come in my boat, come baby, come baby, come. Da, da, da. That's a great song. They're really great, and I'm hoping that they do really well. Baller is the number one viral song globally in Spotify for 4 consecutive days. On global? Really? I think if you saw my Portugal video, then you might realize that I am off Spotify, and I maybe need to spend more time looking at what's trending on Spotify, because obviously that's where everyone else is. Oh, that's really cool. Hello, trance lover. I've been out of the loop for modern trance for a long time, but for the last year and change, I actually went back, and I'm still doing it. I've been listening to old episodes of Armin van Buuren, A State of Trance, and I'm like, wow, there are a lot of really great songs that I had never heard before, and then also to hearing songs that I was familiar with, but didn't realize that they had debuted, or that like they had a presence on that show, has been really surprising. But anyway, Juicebox asking, do you think Lithuania will qualify? It's tough. So this is kind of like reflecting of this is a reflection of how I'm feeling about the overall year. That's a great choice for Lithuania because it's it's sonically so different from what we expect at Eurovision. Could it be maybe a bit too? I don't know if subtle is the right word, because I think in Portugal's case, like Portugal also has a great song, but it is a bit subtle, and I think that might be what causes it to not qualify. In Lithuania's case, I mean, I guess the good thing about Lithuania is that for that audience, there isn't a lot of competition. Whether or not it will be enough is hard to say. And I haven't, like, it's been a long time since I've looked at the semifinals, like who's in what. I think they have Latvia with them, if I'm remembering correctly. So they'll at least get like a 10 or an 8. But yeah, I don't think it's guaranteed, but I'd be very happy for them. Why did Olly withdraw from representing Italy? I really like this song. So he said that he wasn't ready. Maybe I shouldn't fill in the blanks if I don't have the full story. But in any case, so when we covered that video, I brought in my friend Samuele, who was very confident that he was going to say yes because he has the same management as Måneskin, Marco Mengoni, and Angelina Mango. And so they probably did still really push the idea. Yeah, Christina, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm going to let my dog out. So yeah, the belief was that he was going to accept because the management was going to push for it. At the end of the day, he had his fully sold out tour in May, and maybe there are reasons that he hasn't been public about, which is like his decision to make. And some people have also noticed that Angelina Mango has had to take a step back from music as well. I believe that in her case, she was citing burnout, going right out of Eurovision into touring, and that's the other thing too, because the timing of Eurovision is like that happens, and then you go right into festival season. And so knowing how emotionally taxing Eurovision was this past year, I could imagine that people might be worried, that could happen again. And not being emotionally prepared for everything else that follows, right? So yeah, it's too bad. He has a nice song. I heard it in Toronto, of all places, in Union Station, which is the main train station, and I was really so surprised. I don't know if it was just like a specific because it was in the food court, and I don't know if it was like a specific restaurant, because there's a chain of restaurants called Scadabush, which is Italian food, and it's like, yes, it's a chain, but like it's pretty decent quality. They make pasta, pizza, mozzarella. I'm not sponsored by Scadabush, but last time I was there, I heard Andromeda, and then in the bathroom I heard Volare, which is like, if anyone's going to know a Sanremo song around here, it's going to be that one. But yeah, in any case, unexpected appearance. The jury in San Marino was made of Rye people. Okay, well that makes a lot of sense then. We were also tired of Tutta l'Italia when watching Sanremo. By the end of it, it was like Stockholm syndrome. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, that kind of song definitely has that effect where it's like, okay, we've done this for the 50th time. Yeah, that's really funny. Speaking of Ukraine, Zifferblatt have just shared a little snippet of the revamp instrumental, and it has a beautiful orchestra section. So excited. Oh, that's really interesting. I'll be... people are sleeping on Ukraine right now. And I think this is really just a matter of it not being to typical Eurofan tastes. But I think the composition behind that is really, really moving. And the opening and closing with that really high female vocal, beautiful. And so I think that, I can't believe I've heard people say that Ukraine will not qualify for the first time, while they're in a very precarious situation, like a more precarious situation than they've ever been in with respect to the war. Like, are you? It really shouldn't be about that, but the fact that they're bringing like a song that like really means a lot to Ukrainians, and they're in that situation, and you're like, they're not going to qualify. Ukraine might win. I'm not going to make any declarations about winners at this point, just because like it doesn't sound like a winner to me, I must admit. But like, it's reaching people, and I think that the stage performance, I think, didn't really sell it that well. I think like from a visual point of view, there was a lot of colors going on, and if they were to bring something like that, then I don't think it would have that much impact. But when it comes to Ukraine and staging, we know that it's always so much more elevated. They do have a tendency sometimes to do a little too much, but it can only go up. I'm pretty confident. Juicebox saying Deslocado is one of the best songs from Portugal selection. Nobody outside of Portugal should really be mad their favorite didn't win. Same thing as Lucio and Sanremo. So it went completely over my head when I had seen the semifinals, and like it's one of those things where I'm not the kind of person that really gets mad about it, but I would not have thought it was a winner at any point in the competition until people were like, are you aware that this song is going viral in Portugal? And by that point I had already made my video, and unfortunately I missed out on that. But yeah, I'm going to be listening to that one a little bit more, and I'm seeing the appeal more and more. I love Napa, but Kotovia was this close. They were this close. I do think that this is a good case for them to not. It's a good example of why doing the normalizing from like when you have the jury's votes and then converting that to 12, 10, 8, so on and so forth, how it can negatively impact the score, because with a lot of fans who were big supporters of Kenka pointed out the fact that she won the televote and got 0 with the jury, but she didn't get 0 with the jury. She came, I think, second to last with the jury, but with points, right? So that wasn't reflected in the final score, but because of this conversion, then it made it so. And so I think that it could be something to re-examine, but I must say that, like, from a taste point of view, especially with respect to my personal taste and appreciating songs that are not super imposing, that are backed by composition and have a nice balance of elements. Festival de Canção was one of the best of this year. It really was, and regardless of my future investment in Eurovision, I'm probably going to be always tuning into Festival de Canção and Sanremo, and probably like Vidbeer. Those are like the 3 that I'm like fan for life, So we're coming on. Oh, okay. Well, I probably should be wrapping up soon because I have a family engagement to go to. I hard agree with this. AIF flopping is my reason for wanting juries. It's not my reason for wanting juries, but AIA's result is one of the things that has made me kind of less invested in predicting results, because like anyone who thinks that was deserved, regardless of how you feel about the song, that's not a future that I want to go towards, where something that was so intricately developed, beautifully performed, like 10 out of 10 vocals, really elegant staging. I understand it's not everyone's thing from like it's not everybody's cup of tea, but like that deserves so much better. And the fact that it could only get five points from the public is telling of I don't know, just a difference of priorities, and one that makes me a bit unhappy. Pre-recorded vocals in Eurovision. I think that at this point they are necessary in some ways. It's just unfortunate that it does open up the window for people to take advantage of it, and for you to get like these whole sequences where the artists stop singing and it's all backing track. So that I'm not a fan of, but so far we haven't seen a song with that win. Some of them have done well, but none of them have. All the songs that have won since the introduction of pre-recorded backing vocals, none of them have depended on those backing vocals that much. Because when I think about, like, I don't think Zitiboni had them. I think Stefania had a little bit in the chorus, but over top of or underneath the main vocalist, who obviously had plenty of moments of his own to shine, so no problem there. Lorene's had a few kind of like vocal clouds where they're like heavily reverbed, but it was all her voice for the most part. And then Nemo's was also just like mostly their voice. So yeah, I'm not as concerned about them as other people are, but yeah, I accept that they're not a perfect solution. Okay, let's see. Maybe I'll do one more and then wrap up. Scrolling. Okay, we'll do this one. Ivan Europe. I don't think I've pulled up any of your comments yet. Honestly, I applaud Sweden for coming out of their comfort zone and trying something out of the box. It worked for Ireland last year. Yes, and I mean, I don't know if this is completely out of their comfort zone, because when it comes to Melfest, there are always some entries that are like this, like, you know, whether it's Eva and Eva, or I'm trying to think of other ones. They've always had songs that are like that in the selection, with the expectation that they're, you know, kind of responding to, they're filling a niche that you know, the audience kind of comes to the show for. I would be very curious to see if anyone really expected this one to win at an early point, especially with Mons competing there as well. I'm just realizing we didn't actually talk a lot about Mons specifically in this hour, and we can't now because I have to go. But yes, I mean, I as much as I have my concerns about the overall quality of Eurovision, I am really happy for Sweden, like many other people. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it there because I do have to get going soon. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be putting out more videos. I do want to do a dedicated video that talks specifically about Sweden, and I couldn't get the juices flowing when I was writing last night. So this ended up being a good placeholder in the meantime. So yes, please subscribe to the channel so that you can catch up with me for other things. I'd love to know what you have to say. If I didn't respond to your comment, or if you're watching this afterwards, please let me know in the comments below your thoughts about Eurovision this year, whether it's about the weekend that we just had, or any of the other already decided entries, or entries that are yet to be released, because obviously we have another 5 more. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say, other than another thank you, and really, like, the comments that you've been sending me all this year have been so amazing, and yeah, I look forward to more interactions with you all. So have a great rest of your day.